Hello. Okay. Hello. Thank you all so much for coming out today. And thank you for those of you tuning in from home. My name is Paloma Lopez, and I am the Education Manager at the Indian Arts Research Center at the School for Advanced Research. We are thrilled to be here to celebrate and learn from our 2025 Rollin and Mariella King Native Artist Fellow, Akilah Martinez. Akilah Martinez is an award-winning futuristic artist, technologist, and culture bearer who uses XR technology to create immersive storytelling experiences rooted in Navajo culture and language. Inspired by her family and upbringing, Akilah's goal, in her own words, is to create transformative community impact through community-based media. Since beginning her XR journey, Akilah has received various fellowships, awards, and grants. So please join me in welcoming Akilah. Before I turn things over, just a reminder that we will be taking questions after the presentation, so hold your questions until then. And if you are watching at home, please put your questions in the chat. So thank you, Akilah.
Thank you, Paloma. Yes, thank you everyone for showing up. Yate she Akilah Martinez Yanesha. Hello, my name is Akilah Martinez. Bahale Kewinit Ingi Dinebe Keatant Nasha. I come from the Bread Springs community on the Navajo Nation. Ado Ashe Shenalish Yothwashi Sheikhulan. I have my own business. Nohokat, this was it's which is called Glittering World Girl. Ade nish nasht anki patient se be it nehel do nehezad be ish a benachet nehezad nasko walodo nissen. So at Glittering World Girl, I use augmented reality and I incorporate language and culture with the intention that will carry our language and culture forward into the future. So yes, I originally grew up south of Gallup, New Mexico, which is the community Bahale, and which translates to Bread Springs. And yeah, so my whole journey really began around the age of 3. And I tell this story all the time, but I constantly witnessed my grandparents having to watch TV programming that was only offered in English. And so at such a young age, I realized that we didn't have representation in modern media. And I told myself that I would one day love to make media in our language so my grandparents could enjoy it. So that's kind of like, I feel like maybe that's where my lifelong journey began. And then I went to school at UNM and I got my bachelor's of fine arts at UNM. And that's where I really excelled in my academic field. I got introduced to coding and electronic art and also video art at that time. And I just thought it was a really cool medium to integrate language and culture into. So, and then after I graduated, I moved home actually to take care of my grandma into hospice. And during that time, I was also working with local grassroots efforts and organizations when they needed like language translation or language materials added to their content. And during that time, I was able to be part of a film called It's Not Free. And I was the main actress in the film, and I also spoke to Nebazad throughout the film. And a really cool, like special, like moment about that film and in my artistic career is I actually got to show the film to my grandma. And I showed it to her right before bedtime, and she didn't want to go to sleep after watching that. She said she was watching this film, she wanted to rewatch it, so I replayed it for her a couple times, because I think it was like only like 3 minutes long or something, 6 minutes long or something. And she couldn't believe that it was me in the film as well. She was like, that's not you. And like, but it's really crazy to think that like at the age of like 96, she finally saw a piece of media that had the language, her language in it, that had Navajo imagery in it as well. So that was really like an emotional moment for me, and really like at the time validated my mission on what I wanted to do with my life. So yeah, so today I really work on what I now call Indigenous language and culture futurism. And I like to express that through, yes, like some very light video, like super simple stuff for like social media and stuff. But I've also really just grew an interest in the XR technology field, which is like XR technology is an umbrella term for virtual reality. So the bulky headsets, the bulky like the Meta Quest, and they were known as Oculus before. And then so XR is an umbrella term for VR, AR, and which is augmented reality, and MR, which is mixed reality. Where I like to focus on is augmented reality, and that has so many different types of forms within AR itself. So there's mobile AR, which we'll get to experience today. And then there's also there's WebXR, Web AR, augmented reality. And then what I've also been dabbling in most recent is augmented reality glasses, which I use the ones called spectacles, and those ones were developed by Snapchat. So yeah. Aside from that, I think that like in my adolescence, I also really noticed that there wasn't like a lot of places to flourish economic opportunities on the reservation. And as I grew, when I was like in about college, I also realized, and after college, that there's not really any like careers or like jobs available like for language barriers, language and cultural barriers, are people who want to revitalize and sustain language and culture. So I think that my whole approach really is like reflecting on my art school experience and realizing that they taught us principles of art and how to approach art and like color theory and all that, but they didn't really teach us how to make a living off of being an artist as well. So that was also my next journey after my grandma had passed away. So I wanted to learn how to become like financially stable off of my art. So that's kind of like a lot of what my presentation is about. And it's really exciting actually because so we're dealing with emergent technology, which is XR, indigenous language and culture futurism through that. But then also it's like this beautiful journey of like, getting rid of a lot of outdated systems, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Financial systems that are outdated, and also like traditional media forms that are outdated. So yeah, so that kind of leads to my next slide, is that I came up, or like how I really like to approach it is that when we're wanting to become financially stable, especially like on the res, one of the really good options is forming your own business and approaching entrepreneurship. So this is a beautiful quote, and it's basically talking about how business can really be a prototype to the world you want to live in. And I think a really cool example of this that runs within my family is that on my paternal side, my grandpa, who is Sam Martinez in the middle, he was part of this whole movement that really enabled children to come home from boarding schools. So this was just like around the 1960s, 1950s. This was still a really huge problem that boarding schools were a thing. And children were sent off to boarding schools and going through assimilation and just not being allowed to speak their own language, not being able to practice their culture. So part of this whole movement was I'm sure this was happening amongst a lot of indigenous communities in the States. Particularly, this is pertaining to the Navajo community, the Rema Navajo community. And what they were trying to do is they were trying to get funding so they can make a community-based school that will bring their children home to have like maybe a culturally inclined academic environment. At that time, the BIA and the federal government, they would not fund these kind of schools. They were like, we'll just keep funding the boarding schools. So there's stories of these groups of people making numerous trips to Washington, D.C., trying to advocate for community-based schools. So after many attempts, an idea came about to make a nonprofit organization that could then receive funds to make a school. So that's what they did. They formed a nonprofit, they tapped into some private funding, and that led to the very first, I think at the time, this kind of movement was happening in Rama, Navajo, and at the same time, there was this kind of movement happening on the Arizona side of the Navajo Nation, and that one was called Red Rock Community School, I believe. And I think Red Rock got to do it. They got to have funds for a community-based school a little bit earlier than the Rama Navajo school, but the difference there is that at Red Rock, they weren't their own business. They were still operating off of the BIA, but they were able to form a community-based school. The difference there is that Rama Navajo, they formed a nonprofit early on the first try. So yeah, and what this was able to do was that it was not only able to bring kids home, it also was able to fund the local Navajo people to build the school as well, like, you know, have paying jobs as well. So, and then that led to the Self-Determination Act of 1975, where all tribes were able to do this, where on a larger scale, all tribes, kids were able to come home from boarding schools at that time. 1975, not that long ago, right? So I think that learning, like hearing about this story growing up was really inspirational, and like I think I finally put the pieces together in my most recent years that this is business creation. This is about finding a problem that your community is going through and creating a solution. And I think that that's why I'm like really passionate about entrepreneurship. So we're gonna kind of talk a lot about entrepreneurship and an indigenous like regenerative approach to entrepreneurship and mixing that in with storytelling and art and culture revitalization. So a really cool, another like more modern case study about this is a game that came out of the Inupiaq tribe in Alaska called Never Alone. And what Never Alone was about is a group of the Alaskan elders. They felt like the language and culture, they were noticing that the younger generation wasn't adapting to it. So they had an idea to make a game, and they partnered with a game software company to make a game that their kids could enjoy, that the youth could enjoy. So this entailed bringing together the Inupiaq elders and also the game developers, and they created Never Alone. And because Never Alone is based off of like indigenous storytelling and some of their creation their creation stories, that it automatically qualified for a lot of like the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Not only that, but it brought a lot of economic opportunity to their reservation, like to the point where they're able to like build hospitals and like generate unrestricted funds that are not tied to federal dollars as well, which is huge. So this is kind of like an example of how like cultural storytelling and cultural revitalization can really like give back to the community in a multi-dimensional way. And then I feel like within the XR technology field, like it's a really emergent technology. And what is really cool about XR technology is that it's a media that's going to be widely adopted, and if it is really already widely adopted around the world in many industries, not just the entertainment industry. So the really cool thing about XR technology is that there's possibility, and it's already happening right now, where many different stories from many different backgrounds can take place within XR technology, as opposed to like history books and Hollywood and films, Western. Those are like the traditional forms of media that have really shaped a lot of stereotypes on different cultural backgrounds. And a lot of people who come from cultural backgrounds that Hollywood had the control of creating the narratives about different cultural backgrounds, a lot of those communities still suffer from these stereotypes that are harmful. So we see how storytelling and mass production of storytelling can really put communities at disadvantage and create harmful narratives. So aside from that, when you think about Westerns and history books, which are all really biased, a lot of the times they're built off of what you would call like a pyramid business model, where like only the people on the top of that pyramid get the most benefit from those stories being told and the money made generated from those stories. So right now, we're getting out of these outdated systems where people are getting educated. There's a lot of people who are educated in new technology. Also, they're educated in creating like new financial systems as well. And what I'm seeing is a trend within XR technology that people who are developing what's called finance innovation products, they're really interested in putting capital towards like emergent technology and very like diverse stories within those technologies as well. A cool case study a little about that is Native Women Lead. Some of you might have heard of them. They're based out of New Mexico, and they're very much leading in this space. Native Women Lead, they generated their own financial lending system, which is based off of the 5 R's of rematriation, which stand for revolutionary, regenerative, restorative, rooted, and relational. And so this is meant to replace the 5 C's of capital. The 5 C's of capital is a system that has put historically marginalized communities at a disadvantage from like having access to loans and stuff like that. So all of these kind of models are popping up everywhere within the states and around the globe. Another really cool example of this is Raven Indigenous Capital Partners out of Canada. It's a financial intermediary. A cool thing about this is totally just reimagining capital, and they've come up with something, community outcome contracts that redefines ROIs, the return on investment. And an ROI can count as like how much a project positively impacted community. Also, Nations First Technologies, they're also based out of Canada, and they're messing with blockchain and cryptocurrency and DAOs, and seeing how DAOs can really be structured to not really honor what like the Indian Act has put different capital chains on reservations. Like right now, a lot of reservations, we're obligated to give our resources to the federal government. We're obligated to have natural resource production on the res. And so there's like a lot of constraint there, but decentralized autonomous organizations and blockchain that Nations First is building, it's meant to basically put capital at like, so that's decentralized, so it's not all like centralized and dictated by one single entity. So, like I said, a lot of what I'm noticing, there's a huge trend that people, especially people of communities of color, they're coming together to see how we can use these really emergent, innovative next forms of either that's media and finance, and how can they come together to support a circular economy, which is my business. I forgot to mention that, but yeah, my artist name is Glittering World Girl, and the notion or the term Glittering World, which translates as Nohokatiswas in the Navajo language, is a world that was prophesized in our creation story of a time when the Diné people would be surrounded by outside influence, strong hints to what technology is today. And in that world, like, it was prophesized that the Diné people would lose their language and their culture. So I really love to challenge that prophecy, and I'm here to kind of like express language and culture through technology, saying that we can use technology to revitalize and sustain culture. So, yeah, so we went over why XR technology is different from traditional forms of media. And so that kind of just leads to that trend that I was talking about, where there's all kinds of new systems coming into place, new economic models that are coming into place. Like within Glittering World Girl, the notion or the goal there is to create a circular, indigenous-based economic ecosystem that cycles off of language and culture futurism. And there's a lot of organizations like that, or a lot of companies that are coming out and flourishing right now. And that leads to this trending thing of like social enterprise creation. And it's happening all over the world, and there's all different types of new economic models and reimagining economy. Because I think like the, what do you call it? The industrial, time era, that was all about extraction, right? So now a lot of communities were reimagining how can we live harmoniously, and like, so there's all kinds of new buzz terms out there like regenerative economies, like bioregional economies. And a lot of the times, like, and these are happening all over the world, like, from people of all color, they're starting to reimagine these type of structures. And a lot of the times in those systems, they really rely on their indigenous cultures to lead the way in those spaces as well, to kind of like restructure stuff to their own regional area. So yeah, we talked about ownership of storytelling and how XR is really there to amplify voices from all different cultural backgrounds. A cool little case study about that is this organization that we're building, which I'm a co-founder of as well, called ResiDAO. And there, how we're using XR technology is we're creating an AR experience within the Spectacles AR glasses to enable Indigenous entrepreneurs to go through this visioning journey. It's kind of like a meditative experience where they can envision and tap into their ultimate higher self, and to really learn how to externalize abundance, not only for themselves, but for their communities as well. Another cool example of how XR technology meets these new financial these new financial products is XR, Crux XR, and they're a cooperative structure. So everyone who is part of XR has a equal ownership of the business. Yes, so I would say that I kind of got into the XR space again in 2018, or no, about 2019. After my grandma passed away, I went and worked at Art Tech House. I don't know if any of you remember that. It was in Albuquerque. But they had AR experiences there. And then in 2019, I got a Crux Immersive Technology Fellowship that enabled me to travel between Los Angeles and New York City to learn from leading XR technologists, impact investors, and social entrepreneurs. So yeah, we're just all really reimagining what this new ecosystem can look like. So, and then that led me, I was like, wait, I really love XR technology, but I don't know how to develop anything like augmented reality or whatever. So that led to my first grant, which is the Fulcrum Fund here in New Mexico. And that helped me create DigiNewMex. And DigiNewMex, I really just wanted to play with 3D modeling, learn how to create 3D models. So I went for some silly stuff, like lighthearted stuff like chili, a Navajo taco, or if you're another type of Native American, I guess an Indian taco, and then like tamales. So, but yeah, I also got to include other language speakers. In there, I hired a sound engineer to create the beat for this experience. And then DigiNewMex includes 7 indigenous languages found in New Mexico. So we'll go ahead and play a video of that. Let's see. Oop. Okay, so we are right there. So we'll go ahead and play this video of DigiNewMex.
DigiNewMex. Oh, les ennuyer. DigiNewMex.
Moo cooked DigiNewMex.
Do not DigiNewMex.
Digi New Mix Kenhawk.
By the way, the video in the background is
Na
the
Digi
video
Mix
I
Amui.
showed my grandma. Yeah.
Digi New Mix Hawekika.
Ah, Digi New Mix Shantlachia.
Échense un vistazo a Digi New Mix.
And I had to throw some Spanish in there. Yeah.
Digi New Mix. Oh, Ninjani. Digi New Mix.
Moo Pooked Digi New Mix.
Yeah, and I guess since we have some time, I'll actually pull up that video too. Let me just do that real quick. The one that I showed my grandma. I have a short form here, so I could look that up.
Diné, Diné Tsuit in Tonejone. Nashidini Teeth, Ha ne Yat Eogi Shi, Big at the dog lace D na yei. Kontke es ion, na yei is gedan na yaha na leno, ah with ah hitra, na haglon. Aquinded. Al hitwo ya tihiya do shilyat eta. Nihit skep below na yei big at the dog lace. Dina yei eya nska bandal nishi dat Nsa badal nishi Nihitwo Bichan Ditse Ako Hitwoto Yanda Irato Leth.
So that was the short version of that film. It was really cool, fun to be part of. Cool, so we'll go back to here. So yeah, I've really just been on a journey to like learn a lot about XR technology. At the time, like there wasn't, and so I was getting into it as well, like kind of when COVID began. So, you know, there was like that much more like social distance. Wasn't able to go into like physical places to learn about XR, so I had to teach myself a lot of stuff. And then I started attending hackathons. So this one, I attended the Stanford XR hackathon last year, and my team took first place in the Snapchat group category. And we created an AR experience using the AR glasses. And it was immersive audiobook. So I have a little video about that as well. Oop. Don't know. Let's see.
Immersive Inc. is dedicated to social good, aiming to make education engaging through XR and AI. Using Snapchat spectacles, we created Immersive Inc., an app that transforms text into narrated 3D objects, making learning immersive and interactive. When users wear spectacles and launch the app, AI-powered OCR, or optical character recognition, detects text. With a pinch gesture, the text is captured and analyzed by a GPT model, which identifies the main object. And this is then used to prompt 3D models generated by Meshi to narrate the story and interact with the readers, creating an immersive and memorable reading experience.
So the immersive audiobook is called Immersive Ink that we came up with. And I'm really excited about where to take that project. I think that, so when I first saw the medium augmented reality, I thought it would be a really powerful tool to bring to the res and for language and culture revitalization. So in the works of actually working with one of my team members from that project to create a Diné Navajo immersive audiobook. And I'm recently making, have been establishing a relationship with Snapchat to get access to a number of their sets to bring to classrooms. And I think just part of that is noticing that our kids are really technologically inclined, like on the res and off the res, and they really want to see themselves in technology in like modern mediums. So that's kind of my next journey. And then this is kind of like one of the experiences that I created, and it's a form of mobile augmented reality. And so we're gonna kind of go into a little activity session right now. So what you do is you take your phone and you scan the QR code. And we'll take a few minutes just to like explore this. So, okay, yeah, that's cool. Do you want to use my phone? Okay. So what we'll do is we'll scan the QR code, and then a link will pop up and click the link, and then on there, you'll see a play button. Just let me know, actually, let me know when everyone has like it loaded and you see, okay, we'll give it a few more minutes. Let me see if. Okay, so I have some instructions right here. Yeah, like, okay, so if folks are watching online, I'm not sure, maybe if you're watching on your phone, it might be hard to access the QR code, but you could look up Diné 8th Wall or Diné Glittering World Girl, and it'll lead you to the same link. So from there, you'll press play, and then you'll allow all the permissions. And you'll see something like this after that. You'll see this kind of page load after that. And then after that, just tap like a blank spot just left of the screens right here. Just tap this area within that view. So this is a language learning app, and if you tap one of the screens on there, it'll teach you different parts of the Navajo language. So if you wanted, you could actually pick up your phone and like walk closer to where the screens are, and then it should be more. These like smaller screens should be a lot bigger within your view, if that makes sense. Yeah. Oh. Okay, cool. So yeah, like we all got to experience that. So I do have some Diné. So that AR experience is called Diné Yego, which means like Navajo go, or Navajo keep going, or Diné keep going. That's the translation of that. So we do have shirts that I want to give out associated with that experience. So you guys could go to the back of the room and pick your size or whatever. Yeah, so we'll do that right now too. Yeah. So. Yeah. Go ahead and go back there and pick out your size that you would like. Small to 2X. Oh, yes. So, okay. Cozy to go to sleep, like, yeah. Awesome. So for those of you that are watching online, if you want one of these shirts, you can like message me on social media, or you could go to my website, glitteringworldgirl.com, and write me a message there, and we can arrange for me to give you a shirt as well. Yes, for sure. Cool. So, yeah, we have the shirts here. And just something to share real quick about it is right here we see the QR code. So that will immediately take you to the AR experience that we all just experienced. So yes, this is just a shirt dedicated to that AR experience. And then I'll just go ahead and remind that Glittering World Girl is significant for my name. And I just actually thought about it, and it might be, I don't really say these things, but it might be really a name about resilience. You know, the prophecy of the Navajo, the Diné prophecy of the Diné eventually being in a world where they're surrounded by outside influence. In that world, they would lose their language and culture. And so Glittering World Girl, Nohokat Diswashchikin, is really just a story about how we're trying to embrace technology to revitalize language and culture. So. Well, that was fun. I'm glad we all got to do something instead of just sit there. Cool, so let me see. So we went through that. We went through immersive ink. Okay, so my whole next journey, I guess, for Glittering World Girl, there's a few things that I would really love to offer from Glittering World Girl. Glittering World Girl, originally I started out as an artist, and then I also wanted to learn how to be financially stable as an artist. And then I also wanted to create that kind of opportunity within the reservation, or teach other artists how to do that as well. So within that, under Glittering World Girl, I'm going under 2 missions. One is to start doing augmented reality workshops on the reservation or in urban areas for Indigenous communities. So that's something that I'm launching, and I just did one last night for Indigenous youth downtown Albuquerque. And then, so I'm also doing one downtown Albuquerque, or a 2-day augmented reality workshop in Albuquerque in December, and then a 2-day one on the reservation on my res next year, and then a 1-day one at UCLA for Indigenous communities in Los Angeles next year. So that's something I just really want to like have more Indigenous people in the XR space, because there's very few of us. And there's also there's a lot of opportunity, amazing opportunity just to create, connect with all kinds of people from around the world through the XR industry. Another part of that is that under Glittering World Girl, what I started offering last year, which is something that I've been wanting to develop for a couple years, and Diné College gave me the opportunity to do that. Diné College is based out of Lee, Arizona, on the res, and they enabled me the opportunity to come and develop a workshop series that I've been wanting to develop for a couple years, which is called Create a Life You Want, Self-Determination Through Diné-Based Success Consciousness. And so a few years ago, I went on this amazing journey about does anyone know about quantum physics and neuroscience? Yeah, I went on that whole journey and spirituality, but then I realized, I was like, hello, this is all Navajo, philosophy is based off of a lot of this stuff. And I was raised traditional Navajo, and so it was really cool to just really connect the two. And so that's why I created this workshop series, and I got to, I think it was a 6-part workshop series throughout the fall semester of 2024 at Diné College. And I got to introduce a lot of these concepts, and a lot of them knew it already because this is Diné, a part of there's a translation for it in Diné philosophy. We have words for the conscious mind, which in our word is dot binike, and then subconscious mind is dot binike. So I really just started to connect these different philosophies, and this workshop series was tailored to artists and entrepreneurs, and it was really about having them tap into their most infinite, their most abundant selves that we come into this world as spiritual beings, the perfection that we are already as spiritual beings. So like I said, Binike is conscious mind, Binike is subconscious mind, and then there's that super subconscious mind that is that infinite intelligence that can be translated as Diné, the holiest, the holy people, the most holy. So I kind of went on this whole journey about how to bring these concepts together, and I presented this to artists and entrepreneurs on the reservation. I had a really good turnout of it. And I think that this work is really powerful because it allowed me to remind people about their inner power and artists about their inner power and how they can externalize business, or externalize abundance through either that's a business or through their art. And so a lot of these concepts are within quantum physics and neuroscience. A lot of that is this right here. So to the east, there's case thinking, and that whole concept relates around creation and how Creator created us to create, basically off of that concept. And the most powerful thing that humans, 5-fingered people, have is the ability to create. And the notion that thought is creation, thought is what creates stuff. So in that case, and this is a common diagram within the Navajo Nation. In that case, thinking is to the east, planning is to the south, Ina, life is to the west, Sahasin, and faith is to the north. And so I went through this whole workshop series, teaching or just reminding artists and entrepreneurs about how they could think and plan and embody that their future selves, embody it in the present moment, and then have faith that they'll be able to externalize their thoughts. So that's my artist talk. That's all I have for you all today. Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. That was so much fun. Definitely the most active artist talk we've had in a while. Do we have any questions for Akilah?
Oh my gosh, your work is so cool. Thank you for
you so
sharing your
much.
artwork with
Yeah.
us, Heme. My question for you is, so how do you see your work discussing like maybe possibly the sustainability questions surrounding like AI and things like that? Because I imagine that like AI is used in the augmented reality world and things like that.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I feel like so when I first got into the XR space, like AI wasn't really talked about, but just within the last year, like in the XR industry, they're really talking about how just XR and AI are really made to work together. So it's really hard to think about or to approach because there are those like sustainable like living like contradictions within AI, you know? So for me personally, like on myself as Glittering World Girl, I don't really use AI. And then there's also like the whole thing about like securing your data, right? And like how we're dealing with language and culture, or how I'm dealing with language and culture. So on that part, like data security, I've actually grew relationships with like this amazing data scientist who like really understands the nitty gritty of like where the data goes and everything. And I'm planning on maybe working with her some just to like create maybe like a creator toolkit or something like that for like small language learning models. So then like the data is stored locally instead of like out on a cloud. So there's that. With the sustainable effects of it, that is really hard, right? Like especially I think they're proposing to have a data center, if there's one around Los Lunas right now. So that is really a tricky question, you know. And it's hard because like I think if you have a cell phone right now, like we are all pretty much using AI to some extent right now, you know. So definitely a lot of things to consider and to take caution with. But on that case, or on that note, my mom and I, we recently went to Vancouver in Canada earlier this year for Web Summit, and they had an amazing like Indigenous people in tech presence there. Like Canada is on another level. They're amazing, which I've talked to Paloma about, and they're really like open to using AI there. I would recommend connecting or on some level. She has social media. This very amazing leader there. Her name is Carol Ann Hilton, and she runs this program, or I think it's like an organization or her business called Indigenomics. But she talked about how like she used AI to run this crazy assessment of like I think putting in like all the different things that the colonizers put her community through, putting all of that. I think it was like she put like the whole Indian Act word for word into this AI system, and she asked the AI like, if you were to describe this person, like what kind of person would that be, you know? Like if you could describe the person who wrote this, like what kind of person would that be? And she got like profound like results, like the AI diagnosed that person with like multiple mental health issues and like all this and that. Like, yeah, it was crazy. Like her work is like really amazing. Like if you ever have the chance to see her talk in person, like she is amazing. Carol Ann Hilton, she has LinkedIn and Instagram. That's where I'm connected with her at. So yeah, but yeah, it's a tough question, right? Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm not really quite sure how to phrase my question, but a youngish man was talking to my sister and me last night at a restaurant, and he said something about young people, what are their good old days going to be, because they're just all in their technology. And then I'm driving home and I turn on the radio and there you are talking, and you say something about expanded reality and all this, and I'm like immediately like, I must go to this talk.
Oh,
as
cool.
Soon as
Yeah.
I'm listening to that. But where my mind was going with it was metaphor. I think you answered a lot of what I'm wondering about, just want to hearing more about already in your talk. When you said quantum physics, I thought, well, that's actually metaphor is almost kind of a quantum kind of a thing, intellectually and but spiritually. You know, so does metaphor figure into it with the, because expanded reality, we think it's so narrow, we think we know what's what, but we don't. So we have to approach it poetically or thinking in a more quantum way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, I think that, like, where Glittering World Girl is going is that, like, I really want to start emphasizing in these workshops that, like, the spiritual technology is the most best. Like, the things you can't see, the things that aren't physical, like, that's the most powerful is spiritual technology. And there's an amazing Apache proverb that, like, I think it goes like, in this world, the unseen is the most powerful. And, like, that talks about, like, the quantum part about it, right? So I feel like my approach to entrepreneurship, like, I see entrepreneurship as, like, an ultimate journey of returning back to your spiritual self. And I think that you have to kind of maybe be a little more metaphorical in this space because you want to produce content that's culturally appropriate at the same time. We're not going to be putting, like, our most traditional stuff in these mediums. So I think that that's really important, as well as, like, I want to approach technology to create a space for multi-generational connections where youth are connecting with elders to create stories in these mediums. As well as, like, I like augmented reality more than virtual reality because augmented reality, as we saw today, it mixes the physical reality with the digital. As opposed to VR, when you put on the headset, like, you do not see physical reality at all. So and plus I get vertigo, like, I get dizzy easily in VR. And then on the other side of that, like, I really, really like nature. I was just telling Garrett, the amazing photographer here with us today, that, like, I love nature, like, camping, and I think that, like, we have to just remember to connect with Earth too as well. Yeah.
Great. I think we have time for one more question. Do we have one more question?
Yeah.
Yes. Wait.
Sure. For the folks at home. Sure. To follow on that question, you know, the stories of the indigenous culture came from an oral tradition, and through dance and other kinds of arts. This is a new kind of art. Do you have thoughts about how this technology might influence your stories?
Yeah, that's a cool question. Let's see here.
You can think about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a cool question. I think right now, I feel like there's so much to learn within the XR field that there's so much to be done. Like, an example of this, I feel like, I don't know if it'll affect our traditions just because, like, the Navajo culture is so complex. And like I mentioned earlier, like, I myself don't feel comfortable putting, like, ceremony protocols within an experience. I think it's a great tool for, like, language learning where you can put culturally appropriate content in there, like the stuff in Diné. Like, that kind of stuff you can find on the internet anywhere. You know, it's just in an AR experience right now. And I think it would be cool for language learning and some culture learning, things that are broadly known, but not like the stuff that's being done in, like, a really super sacred ceremony. So I don't think it'll, like, really, like, influence, maybe it might influence the pop culture, maybe. But a cool example here is, like, I didn't get to talk about it. Earlier this year, I attended the MIT Reality Hack, and my team, we developed in the Snap Spectacles, the AR glasses, an augmented reality mobility aid meant for people to be able to adjust their canes or walker to the correct height. And we created one version in English and one version in the Navajo language. And so I think when we're using very emergent technology and incorporating our language and thinking about our communities in those technologies, especially when it comes to like medical tech, med tech, we're automatically putting like our indigenous communities at the forefront of tech innovation that can help fill the gaps of like where the medical system, like IHS and stuff like that, might be failing to meet the needs that we have. So I think that that's maybe where it could like, it can definitely affect the pop culture. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Akilah.
Yay.
And thank you all so much for coming out today. We are not going to go to the Dubin studio. Instead, we have brought the feast to you, the snacks. So we do have some snacks out in the hallway. So please have some snacks. You're welcome to come back into this space, mingle, chat. And thanks again so much for coming.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for coming.